I am standing at the entrance of Changdeokgung Palace. This time, I will tour Changdeokgung Palace, among the 5 major palaces of Korea. Changdeokgung Palace is the palace that Korean kings liked the most. The reason is because it used the most Korean architectural style. Accepting the providence of nature and desiring harmony are characteristics of Korean sentiment. The most famous palace in Korea is Gyeongbokgung Palace. Gyeongbokgung Palace and Changdeokgung Palace have completely different atmospheres. Gyeongbokgung Palace was the first palace built when the Joseon Dynasty was founded. After the fall of the Goryeo Dynasty, a new national name was established, Joseon. During the Goryeo Dynasty, Buddhism was the state religion. At that time, Buddhism was severely corrupted, so the power that founded Joseon suppressed Buddhism and accepted Confucianism as the state religion. Gyeongbokgung Palace is the palace that was built with such thorough Confucian ideology. When Gyeongbokgung Palace was built, the roads were leveled and the buildings were aligned in a square shape. There is no green space around the building, so it feels empty. However, Changdeokgung is the complete opposite of Gyeongbokgung. The roads were not leveled, and the buildings are crookedly arranged. That is why there are many stairs between buildings, and it feels like a maze. And trees and grass were planted here and there between the buildings. Changdeokgung is a palace that reflects the emotions of the Korean people, not Confucianism. The road I am walking on now also has an asymmetrical structure. The left side is narrow, and the right side is wider. This is because the buildings were built without changing the natural terrain. If you enter the door on the left, you can see the central palace, Injeongjeon. You can see small statues on the roof of the gate. These are called japsang. They are used to drive away bad energy and ghosts. The more statues there are on the roof, the more important the building is. I arrived at the center of Changdeokgung Palace, Injeongjeon. Injeongjeon is a building where major national events are held. This is where foreign ambassadors are welcomed, the coronation ceremony, and New Year's celebrations are held. The meaning of the name Injeongjeon is a building that carries out good politics. If you look to the left and right, you can see small stone monuments. This indicates the ranks of the subjects. Civil servants should stand on the left, and soldiers on the right. During national events, subjects should stand facing each other with the center path as the standard. You can see 5 flower-shaped carvings on the roof of the building. This is a plum blossom. It represents the royal family's emblem. The reason plum blossoms became a symbol is because the Korean surname Lee means plum tree. Plums were considered the best tree in ancient times. Therefore, it is presumed that the Lee surname was used to inherit the meaning of the best. I'm going to go up and look inside the building. The meaning of the name Changdeokgung is to accumulate virtue for the people and prosper. Injeongjeon was built in 1405, but it suffered 3 fires. If you look to the right, you can see Namsan Tower in the distance. The exterior of the building is painted with colorful Dansyeong. It was painted to extend the life of wooden buildings. Since Dansyeong materials were too expensive, only major government buildings were painted. What does the interior of Injeongjeon look like? The interior of the building is also splendidly decorated with Dansyeong. There are also electric lights hanging. There is a painting behind the chair in the center. It is called Ilwal o Akdo. It depicts the sun, moon, 5 mountain peaks, and the ocean. The king's chair always has that painting behind it. It was believed that the painting would be complete only when the king sat in front of it. This is a unique feature of Korea that is not found in China or Japan. The painting always accompanied the king during his official events. And even when the king died, the painting was buried with him. And if you look up at the ceiling, you can see a deep, square hole. There are 2 Bonghwang statues there. They are not visible here because of the braces in front. So I brought a picture. The Bonghwang is an imaginary animal known in East Asia. It is the leader of all birds and symbolizes the opening of a new world. The reason there are 2 is because there are a male and a female. It symbolizes the harmony of plus and minus of all things in the universe. I walked around the corridors surrounding Injeongjeon. If you look to the right, you can see a strong wind and a blizzard. Gyeongbokgung Palace is so crowded that it is difficult to take pictures in the corridor. However, Changdeokgung Palace is not crowded compared to that. It may be because the weather is so cold that day. This time, let's walk on the left path from the starting point. I explained earlier that Changdeokgung is complicated like a maze. You can find out if you walk along this path. The building you see in front of the left path is Gyujanggak. It was a royal library and academic research institute. It was the place that actually served as the king's advisor. In the 18th century, the conflict between the king and his subjects intensified during the Joseon Dynasty. It experienced a period when the power of the subjects became stronger than that of the king. In 1776, King Jeongjo established the current Gyujanggak and selected young researchers. All of his policies were promoted based on data from this research institute. Policy implementation based on scientific evidence could keep corrupt officials in check. However, after King Jeongjo died, the king's power virtually disappeared. The era began when officials could replace the king at any time by enthroning their preferred royal family members. This became the cause of Joseon's failure to develop further and its downfall. They imposed ridiculous taxes on the people and even sold official positions for money. The national power was weakened, and Japan easily occupied Korea and made it a colony. The person who built Changdeokgung Palace was Taejong, the third king of Joseon. King Taejong hated staying at Gyeongbokgung Palace. Taejong was not originally a candidate for the throne. He committed a bloody massacre in Gyeongbokgung Palace in order to become king. He did not want to live in Gyeongbokgung Palace that was so bloody. That is why he built a new palace after he ascended to the throne. Changdeokgung was the second of the 5 palaces built in Korea. King Taejong wanted to rule with strong royal authority. No one would have raised an objection to the king. All his subjects had seen the massacres he committed. Maybe it was a reign of terror. Ironically, such a strong king's power made Changdeokgung more Korean-style architecture. In fact, if you visit both Gyeongbokgung and Changdeokgung, most people feel that Changdeokgung is more beautiful. Gyeongbokgung has large buildings, but it feels empty. The kings of the Joseon Dynasty were the same. Most Joseon kings preferred to stay at Changdeokgung rather than Gyeongbokgung. Almost all kings slept and worked here. That is why Gyeongbokgung was mainly used for special purposes, such as welcoming foreign ambassadors. If you look at the front of the building, you can see small statues on the roof. This is the Seonjeongjeon. It is a place where portraits of past kings are kept, and where the spirits of the previous kings reside. The portraits of the kings are moved with them whenever the king moves the palace. That much importance was attached to the Confucian culture of respecting ancestors. From a modern social perspective, it feels quite unique. It may also be to remember where their roots began. This is my personal favorite place. The roof of Injeongjeon can be seen from afar, which is really beautiful. The building on the left is Yeongjidang. It was where the king would greet the spirits of past ancestors. There are many stairs, and the path is as complicated as a maze. I arrived at Injeongjeon after passing through the maze-like paths. This time, I'm going to look at the right side of Injeongjeon. If you look at the building on the right side of Injeongjeon, you can see a blue roof. This is the place used as the king's office. It was called Seonjeongjeon. Let's go there. There is a reason why the roof of that building is blue. After the war with Japan in 1592, most of Korea's palaces were burned down. Gyeongbokgung was completely burned down, and Changdeokgung was also more than half destroyed. So, new buildings needed to run. The government had to be built. He began building a palace with an enormous area that was 10 times the size of Gyeongbokgung Palace. It was so large that it surrounded the entire mountain. As a result, the national finances were at rock bottom, and the suffering subjects overthrew King Gyeonghaegun and enthroned a new king. The new palace that was built at that time used blue tiles. That palace was torn down, and the building materials were used to build a new royal office in Changdeokgung Palace. They tore down the new palace, saying that it was a cursed building built by a mad king. So the palace, which was said to be 10 times the size of Gyeongbokgung Palace, remains only a legend. The blue roof tiles were especially expensive. Making blue tiles required a lot of potassium nitrate. It is a material used in making gunpowder and was difficult to obtain worldwide in the past. This is the interior of the king's office. Behind the chair is the same painting I saw in Injeongjeon. There is 2 Bongwang sculpture right above the chair, but it is not visible from here. There are also Bongwang paintings on the ceiling. The 2 Bongwang sculptures on the ceiling look like this. I will leave the king's office and go to the building next door. Looking ahead, the flat pine trees are impressive. Those pine trees are probably very old. If you go up the stairs, this is the Gyeongbokgung building. Gyeongbokgung is where the king and queen lived. They would sometimes sleep or drink tea here. Later, it was used as a conference room for state affairs. You can see that the pillars at the entrance of the building are very ornately decorated. If you look closely at the pillars, you can see that they are engraved with golden plum blossoms. The entrance to the building is blocked, so you have to go around it through the side door. You can see people coming out after looking around in the front. Unfortunately, some parts of the building are blocked due to renovation work. The part blocked by the construction wall is Daejeon. It is the official bedroom of the king and queen. I entered the courtyard of the Gyeongbokgung building. There is a guide and explanation in front. This is what the interior of the Gyeongbokgung building looks like. The floor is carpeted, and instead of floor heating, it uses wall-mounted radiators, which is closer to a Western-style interior structure. I am going back out. The icicles hanging from the roof are impressive. The building on the left is Seonjeongjeon. This building was used as the Crown Prince's study room. Changdeokgung Palace is much better to visit in spring and fall than in winter. This is because the trees around it are blooming and the leaves are falling, making it really beautiful. If you follow this road, you will come across the King's Garden and Changdeokgung Palace. Changdeokgung and Changdeokgung Palace are now called separately, but they were originally considered one palace without boundaries. Changdeokgung and Changdeokgung Palace were called Dongwo. It means the Eastern Palace. Gyeongbokgung Palace was called the Northern Palace. Gyeongbokgung and Deoksugung Palace were called the Western Palaces. Now, let's visit the Nakseonjae building for the last time. Nakseonjae is a building located between Changdeokgung Palace and Changgyeonggung Palace. Unusually, it is not painted with Daejong. It was built in the shape of a house for the noble class, but the interior structure is built in the style of a royal building, except that it is not painted with Daejong. This is an unprecedented event in the history of Korean dynasties, built by King Seonjeong in 1847 for his beloved concubine. At the time, King Seonjeong was 21 years old. He died at the age of 23, just 2 years after building Nakseonjae. This is where King Seonjeong slept and stayed. It looks like an ordinary house, but you can see that the patterns on the windows are different. The windows on the left and right buildings are different in shape. The walls also have honeycomb patterns. This shows how much effort King Seonjeong put into building the house for his beloved concubine. The building on the left is where the concubine mainly lived. This building existed before King Seonjeong built Nakseonjae. So if you look closely at this building, you can see faint traces of Daejong painting, but I can't see it. Nakseonjae is also the last building used by the Joseon Dynasty family. The royal family lived here until 1989. The last royal family died here. It had modern facilities, but after the last royal family died, the government restored it to the old style. This concludes my tour of Changdeokgung Palace. Thank you for watching the video.